The way we all work is changing. Companies are accelerating their digital transformation, creating experiences that engage customers, providing employees the flexibility to work from anywhere, and collaborating with business partners around the world. My name is Dr. I'm a lead product manager on the Microsoft Identity Platform, working on developer experiences and authentication libraries. I'll walk you through the platform with my colleague, Nick Gomez.
Thanks, Saeed. Hi all, my name is Nick Gomez, and I am a product manager in the Microsoft Identity division. I work in customizability of authentication experiences and allowing apps to support external identities.
Here's the agenda for today. First, we'll show you how simple it is to get started and how to integrate identity into your application. Then we'll cover some of the ways that you can fully customize the experience. Next, we'll talk about how the platform works with any identity. In this section, we'll show you how to get started. But for those of you who are new to the Microsoft Identity Platform, let me first give you a brief introduction. Let's start with the benefits of using the Microsoft Identity Platform in your applications. When using the Microsoft Identity Platform, you give all the heavy lifting to Microsoft. We take care of the hard problems, like permissions and consent, compliance, privacy, regulations, breach detection, and more. This is great news because it allows you to focus on your core product, saving time and money while developing your app. But it's not just about saving time and money. Your app is going to be more successful because of 4 reasons. First, you'll reduce sign-in friction. The Microsoft Identity Platform enables users to sign in with their preferred identity using a familiar user experience. Second, because security is enforced by Microsoft, you'll always get the latest in identity innovation, such as passwordless, without having to build it yourself. Third, your application will be easy to manage by IT and comply with IT policies. And finally, your app will get secure access to rich data. It's easy to request permission to data and call Microsoft Graph or your own API. To summarize, by using the Microsoft Identity Platform, you'll save time, reach lots of users, and your app will be future-proof, getting all the latest innovation in identity. So what does the Microsoft Identity Platform include? The Microsoft Identity Platform is our unified platform for developers. It includes one portal to register all of your applications, one set of Microsoft Authentication libraries for building web, mobile, and desktop apps with your favorite programming language or framework. One endpoint to sign in any Microsoft identity, which is standards compliant, allowing compatibility with third-party libraries. This enables secure access to APIs from Microsoft Graph to Azure or your own protected web APIs. You can authenticate any Microsoft identity, including work or school accounts or personal accounts. Your application can sign in external identities, such as users from other organizations or social accounts like Facebook or Google. And our platform supports open industry standards. The Microsoft Identity Platform makes it easy to integrate identity into your application. Let's jump into a quick demo of the Getting Started experience.
Imagine you need to create an application that only allows employees of your organization to sign in. The way that we often demo integrating your app with identity is through our Quick Start experiences in the Azure portal. This involves opening the Azure Active Directory service and registering a new application under App Registrations. Once I finish giving the app registration a name, I can go under our Quick Start tab, and I see a variety of languages and platforms to choose from. The Quick Start will give me step-by-step instructions that allow me to download a working sample. However, today I want to show you another option. We've been working with the Visual Studio team to make it easy to integrate identity into your application using the File New Project experience in Visual Studio 2022. I just opened Visual Studio 2022, and I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to choose ESP.NET Core Web App. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to choose Microsoft Identity Platform for the authentication type. Next, Visual Studio is going to install a tool that will walk you through the process of registering your app with the Microsoft Identity Platform. This is what allows the Identity Platform to establish trust with your application. Once it finishes, I'm going to click Configure, and I'm going to hit plus to register a new application. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to check Add Microsoft Graph Permissions so that the project demos a call to Microsoft Graph. Last, it's telling us that signing in a user in a web app requires a secret, either a string or a certificate. By default, it's creating a secret that goes in a location that does not get checked in. Before going to production, we do recommend using a certificate. So it's created my project. First, I'm going to go into program.cs. And here you'll see that we've included Microsoft Identity Web, and we're configuring the middleware for a secure web app that requires sign-in, and we're calling a downstream API, in this case, Microsoft Graph. If I go under Pages and look at the index.cs.html.cs file, you'll see that we're calling Microsoft Graph to retrieve the display name and putting it in a property bag. And in index.html, we're displaying the result that we retrieved from Microsoft Graph. Let's hit F5 and see what it does. Because it's the first time I'm running this app, I need to provide my consent to share information with this app. And here we are. You can see that I'm signed in and it's displaying information about the signed-in user that it retrieved from Microsoft Graph.
That's it. Because Microsoft authentication libraries handle all the heavy lifting, your application is now ready to handle many advanced scenarios out of the box. Our Microsoft authentication libraries are optimized for the Microsoft Identity Platform and provide the best experience for single sign-on, caching for outage resilience, and supporting the latest innovation. We have a variety of MSAL libraries that are generally available, and the coverages of our languages and frameworks continues to expand. While most of you are already taking advantage of MSAL, we know that some of you are still migrating from our older ADL library and using Azure AD Graph. Both of these will soon be end of life. Now is the time to migrate your app to MSAL and Microsoft Graph. We have documentation to walk you through the migration experience, and if you encounter any problem, you can find us and other community experts on Stack Overflow. We're also listening to your feedback, and we recently extended the end-of-life timeframe by 6 months to give you more time. Now that we've covered the platform, one of the questions I commonly get from customers is, how do I customize the experience? Nick, I hear you have exciting updates to share on that front.
Sure do. Let's talk about all the things you can customize. With the Microsoft Identity Platform, we offer rich customizability and extensibility so you can seamlessly integrate your authentication and identity workflows with your applications. You can customize the UI, your automated processes, your tokens, and much more. First, let's talk about customizing the UI of your authentication experiences. At a basic level, you can configure the branding of the sign-up, sign-in, and other experiences your end users see. You can start with customizing the logo and background colors. And for your customer or consumer-facing apps, you can take it to the next level by customizing the domain of the login URL, modifying the layouts of your pages, localizing the strings to any language, and even providing your own HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. With all of this, you can ensure the experiences that your users see align with your organization's branding and your application's look and feel. We also know that programmatic management and customization is important for our developers. That's why our portal experiences and products use the same APIs available to you as a developer. Your apps can call Microsoft Graph directly to get information about users. You can also trigger and manage calendar invites Teams messages, and much more. You can also use Microsoft Graph to incorporate your identity and authentication configurations into your CI and CD pipelines and other automated processes. You may also need to customize what claims are included in your token to meet your application's needs. Today, you can include information like groups, roles, display name, and more, and even manipulate and modify how those claims are emitted in your tokens. Now, we're adding the ability for you to include information from external systems. You may have an SQL database, a legacy identity user store, like an LDAP store, or even a CRM system, which contains information about your end user. Maybe a lot of your applications need that information, so you want to include it in the tokens issued to your applications. Before diving into a demo, let's get a high-level overview of the flow. First, your user goes to your application and clicks on the sign-in button. Your app then redirects the user to Azure AD. Next, Azure AD will authenticate the user. Before issuing a token, Azure AD will internally raise the on-token issuance start event. When this event occurs, Azure AD will call an API that you've developed for this scenario. Your API then fetches information from one or many external systems. Your API passes back that information to Azure AD, which in turn makes it available to your tokens based on your application's token configuration. Now, let's dive in on how we can set this up. So first, we need to create an API endpoint that Azure AD will call before issuing a token. It will act as a source of claims. We're going to use the authentication events trigger to create this API. It's an Azure function trigger specifically made for authentication experiences. I've already installed the Visual Studio Code extension here, so I'll just hit Control-P to pull up the command panel, and I'll use the create Azure Authentication Events Trigger project command. We'll give it a name, and we'll choose the default settings here. Now let's choose a folder to put this project in and create it. Great, so my project is created. It's going to ask me to use the .NET restore command to install all the dependencies. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Awesome, so that's done. Now we can go to the authentication event functions C# file. And here we'll see that all the boilerplate is already laid out for us. We just need to add our business logic. So right here is where we would typically fetch information from an SQL database or an LDAP store or wherever else you may need to pull information from. For our scenario, let's say we're fetching information about one of our suppliers. This can include supplier ID and relationship tier. Now I'm just going to fill in some values for this. And we can see that the second claim is actually a multi-value claim, so I can put in multiple values here. I'll hit Control Save. And now we can publish our Azure function. We could test locally, but I'm just going to go ahead and use the built-in Azure function integration to deploy. I'm going to choose an existing function app, but you can also just create a new one. And it's going to ask me if I'm okay with overriding, which I am. And so this will start the task of deploying. This might take a little bit, and once it's finished deploying, it will be available in the web. Great. Now my function is published, and I can go ahead and register it in Azure AD. First, I'll open the Azure AD portal, navigate to Enterprise Applications, Custom Authentication Extensions, and let's create a new custom extension. I'll choose the on-token issuance start event type, which is what my Azure function is designed to work with. Now I'll provide some details about my API endpoint. So let's give it a name. And we can paste in the target URL of our Azure function. I should note here that you can use whatever API development platform you choose to create this API. Here we're using Azure Functions, but you could also use Logic Apps for a no-code solution. I'll leave everything else here as default, and I'll click on Next. Now we need to configure how we're going to secure the API. The API will get a service-to-service token validating that the Azure AD Authentication Event Service is calling that app that I choose here. This app represents my function app. Since I don't have one yet, let's create a new one. Just need to provide a name, and we're good to go. click on Next. Now we need to specify what we expect our function to return. So in our case, it's supplier ID, and then relationship to you. I'll click on Next. I'll review the information and hit Create. This will take a little bit of time, but it's going to go ahead and register the application as well as the custom extension for us. We can track progress by checking the Notifications tab. Great, so our custom extension was created, and now I'm being told that the custom extension requires admin consent to be granted in order for it to be able to receive custom authentication extension HTTP requests. So I can scroll down here and I'll see the Grant Permission button. I'll click on that, and here we see the consent screen. I can read more details about why this permission is needed, but basically it's required so that custom extensions associated with the application that we created can receive custom authentication HTTP requests, which include information about the user, client and resource service principals, and other information about end user authentications. I'll go ahead and click Accept, and this will grant a permission. For our next steps, we're going to need the custom extension ID, so I'll go ahead and copy that, as well as the application ID that represents our API. So I'll click on it. I'll copy this. Great, so the permission has now been granted, and we can move on to the next step. Now, let's go to my Azure function to secure the API. We're going to use the Microsoft Identity Platform integration with function apps in order to accomplish this. Let's go to Authentication, add Identity Provider, select Microsoft, and we're going to provide the details of the app that we just registered as part of the custom extensions experience. So let's paste that app ID and paste it again here. Let's change this to 401 in case API calls are unauthenticated, and click Add. Great, now we have a fully secure and running Azure function we can use. Now, let's configure an application to use our custom extension as a source. Like we mentioned, you can use Microsoft Graph to programmatically manage your users, apps, and configurations. For these next steps, I'm going to use Microsoft Graph Explorer to show you what that looks like. To do these next steps, we need identifiers like this one. You can grab these from the portal or Graph, but I've already pre-populated them here. First, accept mapped claims to true in our application. All this does is to say that we can customize and modify what the token looks like by applying claims mapping policies. So I'm going to hit Run Query, and we've been successful. Now we need to upload a claims mapping policy. A claims mapping policy is a JSON file that looks like this. Here I've configured my claims mapping policy to include all the claims that are typically included in tokens, as well as two additional ones called supplier ID and tiers. These two additional claims use the custom claims provider as a source. A custom claims provider just refers to a custom extension that uses the onTokenIssuanceStart event type. The ID is what our API is responding with for the claim. Notice how we can rename this, and we can also choose what to emit or what not to emit from the API response. To upload this to Microsoft Graph, we need to serialize that claims mapping policy, and so I've already done that here, and we can go ahead and click Run Query. This creates our claims mapping policy that we can now go and assign to an application. First, let's grab the ID of the policy that we just created, and next, we need to just go and perform this operation. So all this does is that it assigns the claims mapping policy to a particular application with this ID. Let's hit Run Query. Great, now that step is done. And the last step is to create an authentication event listener. All this policy does is that it says when an end user is signing in to an app with this particular application ID, before issuing a token, call this custom extension. And so now let's hit Run Query, and that creates our authentication event listener. Now, let's go modify our application to use these claims. I'm going to go to Saeed's Visual Studio project and add a few lines. These lines map the values from our token onto our data model for the application. And then we go to the HTML page and we add these lines so that it's shown on our web UI. Now, let's run our app locally. I hit F5. This will build our app and launch it in our browser. I'm already logged in, so it's automatically going to log me in. And we can see that supplier identifier as well as tiers are now shown in our UI. This is being fetched from our token, which is enriched by Azure AD by calling our API.
To recap, we've made it super easy for you to extend your authentication experiences using custom extensions and APIs. We're starting with the token enrichment scenario, and we're glad to announce that we'll be releasing this functionality into preview this summer. Another core part of the Microsoft Identity Platform is the ability to customize who, when, and how users can sign into your applications. Today, you can build apps that your end users can sign into using their work, school, or even personal Microsoft accounts. The Microsoft Identity Platform enables you to easily connect with all types of users, whether you're employees, customers, or even partners. External collaborators might include your partners, suppliers, vendors, or contractors. They can all access your apps and resources using their identities from other Azure AD tenants, as well as standards-based identity providers like SAML and WSFed. They can also use social identity providers like Facebook and Google. Your customers can access your apps and resources using any existing identity they may have, including their accounts with Microsoft, Apple, Google, Facebook, or any OIDC-compliant identity provider. I am happy to announce the general availability of SAML 2.0 and WSFed-based identity providers for external collaborators. Guest users can use their own IDP-managed organizational account to sign into your Azure AD tenant and start collaborating with you. Now, we want to show you how to accomplish even more complex scenarios like collaborating with users whose organizations are in other Microsoft clouds. We're going to use Azure AD B2B collaboration functionality, which is part of external identities and the Microsoft Identity Platform. For this demo, we are going to use the scenario of ZT Tires. ZT Tires is a large supplier of tires to many organizations. Their largest business is supplying tires to the US government. So they have set up their Azure AD organization in the Microsoft Azure Government Cloud. They also supply tires to many commercial customers, including Woodgrove. ZT Tire employees, like Josh, need to access Woodgrove resources with their ZT Tires identity. We will walk through a demo that shows how to quickly set up this connection and use Azure AD B2B to bring users from ZT Tires to the Woodgrove tenant. Let's dive in to see how we can set this up.
First, let's go to the external identities experience. This is where I generally manage my collaboration with my partners and guest users. Let's go to cross-tenant access settings, add organization. Here I'll paste in ZT Tires tenant ID and hit add. Now let's configure the inbound access settings. I'll leave everything as default except go to trust settings, customize settings, and trust multi-factor authentication from other Azure AD tenants. There's one more step, which is to enable collaboration with organizations from the Microsoft Azure Government Cloud. Great, now we're set up. Of course, this relies on cross-tenant access settings also being configured on the ZT Tires tenant. That has already been done, so we're good to go. Now, all we need to do is invite Josh. Let's go to the user's experience. Click on New Guest User. Type in Josh's email. And hit invite. Now, let's open a new private tab and navigate to our local application. And here we can sign in as Josh. Let's paste in Josh's username. Hit next. Notice how I get redirected to login.microsoftonline.us. This is because ZT Tires is an organization in the Microsoft Azure Government Cloud. Next, let's type in Josh's password and hit sign in. Since Josh was just invited, he gets a just-in-time prompt to redeem his invitation.
This is what Josh would see whenever he tries to log in to an application in this tenant for the first time. I go ahead and accept the prompt. Woodgrove has an MFA requirement for all their external users, and because Woodgrove trusts MFA from ZT Tires, I can use my existing MFA methods. I'm going to go ahead and accept the notification from my Authenticator app, and we get signed in. There's one more thing. Now we see a terms of use that Woodgrove has set up for its external users. I can review this and accept. Awesome. So now we see that Josh, who's from an organization in the government cloud, was able to sign in to our Woodgrove Logistics Portal application. With that, I'm happy to announce the ability to collaborate with identities across different Microsoft clouds using Azure AD external identities and B2B collaboration. With this capability, you can invite users from different Microsoft clouds to access your applications and resources using the identity that they already have.
Thanks, Nick, for those exciting announcements. Let's take a look at how our customers are taking advantage of the Microsoft Identity Platform and the external identities functionality.
Greggs operates from over 2,200 shops across the length and breadth of the United Kingdom. We offer food on the go. We already had a loyalty app, but we had no visibility, no data or anything like that, so it was difficult for us to manage. Then COVID came along, and COVID changed a number of dynamics. The customers were very much looking for a new way of shopping with us, a new way of engaging with us. We needed to firstly ensure that we migrated all of those customers across in a safe and secure way and start to build out the technology to engage with those customers through click and collect. Our technology teams and engineering teams very much needed something that would scale out and enable us to interoperate between a customer having a frictionless experience across both the website and the app. The technology and engineering teams are very comfortable that the Azure AD Microsoft solution was able to fulfill that need.
The partnership with Microsoft has been great. We worked with Microsoft's identity experts and we were able to implement the solution in 6 weeks end to end. We decided to migrate to Azure Active Directory external identities as a means to manage all of our customer identities. We use this to integrate with our digital solutions across mobile and web. We've been able to utilize monitoring systems provided by Microsoft, such as risky sign-in detection and integrations with log analytics and application insights. It allows us to keep our customers safe and secure in an increasingly hostile environment. We've completely customized each user journey, including a bespoke UI and custom domains. This lets our customers feel like they're only interacting with Greggs.
The app allows customers to both collect loyalty points for all of their purchases, to find out where a Greggs shop is, but also it offers click and collect as a service, which allows customers to avoid the queues, to place their order in advance. When they're arriving at the shop, they just go to a collection point at the side, rather than having to queue with the normal customers.
We didn't have any issues in regards to that migration process. The important thing here is that that was done in a way that was transparent to those users. They downloaded a new app update and they logged in as normal. We started off with 1% of our user base and we gradually scaled that out to 100% and monitored while we were going along the way.
We now have millions of customers now using the service.
Based on our experience with Azure Active Directory external identities, we know that we can depend on it to keep our digital services moving forward with agility and pace.
The future for us is expanding the number of customers and making it a fun and enriching experience for them.
It's great to see our customers innovate on the Microsoft Identity Platform. Let's wrap up. We started off with an intro to the Microsoft Identity Platform and showed you how simple it is to get started. We then enumerated some of the ways to customize the identity experience. And last, we talked about how you can broaden your reach and let users bring their existing identities while signing into your application. Here are some of the resources that we have available. Explore overviews, tutorials, and code samples on Microsoft Docs. Also have a look at Microsoft Learn for interactive learning exercises and videos. Thank you for joining us today.
We hope you enjoyed the rest of Microsoft Build.